eliminate the electro brake and the illegal, cruel, inhumane act by Detective Kuchek. And my wife's motivation was to falsely accuse me of a crime he knew I could not commit. But also to address Olivia Chow. Chow says 10,000 tons of garbage she'll clean up. Tell me, Olivia, if that is true, and you're not just giving lip service, how could you have missed all this? How could you have missed all this, Olivia Chow? If you are truthful and you have any integrity, and you expect the people of Toronto to believe that during your cleanup week, you and your whatever crews had cleaned up 10,000 tons of garbage. Tell me, Olivia Chow, how could this garbage that is so obvious be here now? Now I do not know whether you were involved or not, or was it true to community housing, because I exposed the corruption in housing and corruption in CO in your crew check from 43 Division. And whatever officers decide to order me homeless and see that I do not mourn my two loving animals, Mr. Wonderful and Miss Cat, who burnt to death in a fire that was in a room that I believe in, and Mr. Paul Keaton, who was using that room, was due to an electrical problem with Toronto community housing for always hiring contractors from different countries, don't even speak English and don't even have an electrical license in Canada. I didn't know what this inhumane, totally unqualified, definitely, to be a detective or a law enforcement officer named Kruchek, and this, what's her name, Melanie, the one who signed as the accused, the arresting officer, and yes, I signed as a peace officer because clearly I am the peace officer, and she is the accused because Toronto Police from 43 Division wrongfully handcuffed my hand illegally and forced me to sit down and say I will not go near the premise of my room or a fire. And if I didn't agree, they accused me and forced me to go through great pain ordeals. I had no garments on because when I ran out of the house and I uncovered the fire in the room, the individual was homeless, was staying. I only had a ripped pair of pants, no shoes, no socks, and my dog didn't even have a leash. Yet, to be a child, you said you did all this cleanup. We'll address that later. But I was candidate for provincial parliament attorney. I was currently running for federal member of parliament, getting my signatures. I was also an applicant in the Supreme Court of Canada who exercised Rule 73 on February 29th, the day before Olivia Chow was illegally become mayor. I also brokered the largest children's rights case in Canadian history. Faced 3 levels of government simultaneously and blocked Maxime Bernier from using the name People's Party in Ontario. I was also planning my children's garden of hope, my homeless hunger feed-outs, and all the social service I've done. And if you Google 4301 Kingston Road, you will see that I got property standards orders against Toronto Community House. If somebody lives here, then I will give them, but I don't get to sleep because I was shoved down to the streets to where I ended up in a shelter. There was no ventilation. And I died this morning, stifled to death. Extreme fentanyl use. My animal ended up sick as hell. And the police expect you to believe that I set a fire had killed my 2 animals I had for over 5 years. Mr. Wonderful and Miss Cat. And in turn, I was in the fire in the living room, with the living room, while the door was locked in the bedroom. And I ran in there to try and get out. This individual who was homeless, who was occupying that room, when I ended up giving him a place to stay so he didn't freeze to death no other time. But yet, he had left. We found out later. And yet, you're telling me in 2.5 hours, the police excluded him, who could have been, if this was serial charges, as the police said, he would have been the only person who would have committed this act. Certainly not somebody who was in the Supreme Court of Canada against Olivia Chow, somebody who was a candidate for mayor, somebody who had just ran provincially, somebody who was getting signatures federally, somebody who broke the largest children's rights case in Canadian history, and you knew the police did a favor to trying to come into housing because I got so much property for standards, orders against them. And this is where they left me. So they might have. For the shelter, you have to be in at 11, but 11 to 5, I can't sleep there because I can't breathe. Can't breathe because there's a basement where it's a drug genocide against the homeless. More to follow. Imagine this. The people of Toronto stay silent. Toronto cops wrongfully, falsely, cruelly, illegally. Basically, attempt to kill me. Homeless kids. Or forced me to a psychiatric drug. This is incredibly unbelievable, despicable, disgraceful act from the law for the police service in Toronto and Toronto's largest housing corporation to do against the Canadian citizen, even if you call him black. Because I'm not black. And because you call him black, you can act. Reconnect. So, imagine this. This is where I lay my head, and they say, I, Carson, why the hell would I be in the fire if I committed the act? Would I not want to die too if I did that? Corruption in the Toronto Police Service. To God be the glory.